Jonah Mallory wasn't a superstitious man. 40 years on the water had taught him that most tales ghost ships, sea serpents, lights in the deep were born from boredom or rum. He'd heard them all in dockside bars from men with skin and too many stories to sort truth from madness. And usually, he'd chuckle, nod, and sip his whiskey. But Greywater Shoals, that was different. Not haunted, just wrong. It was a patch of ocean no more than 60 square miles wide, located between a jagged offshore reef and a trench too deep to scan properly with standard sonar. Fishermen rarely spoke of it, not out of fear, but out of the same instinct that tells you not to poke a sleeping dog. Still, Jonah wasn't one for ghost stories. He was a realist, practical, seasoned, and that morning, he set out alone. The dockhands were still nursing their coffee as Jonah's trawler, the Marlin's wake, slipped past the last buoy. The sky was painted in long, amber streaks. Not a cloud in sight. The ocean stretched out like polished steel. Jonah was chasing a tuna run that shouldn't have been there. Warm currents had started pushing north earlier than expected, disrupting the migratory path. Something was shifting under the surface, water temperatures fluctuating erratically. Big fish, moving wrong. For a seasoned fisherman like Jonah, that meant one thing, an opportunity. By 10:30 a.m., he had cleared the last channel marker and entered open sea. By 12 o'clock noon, he was deep into the shoals. His radar picked up movement. Sporadic clusters fast, low, unmistakably tuna. He throttled down, careful not to spook the school, and deployed the sonar buoys. That's when he noticed it. Stillness. Not calm, still. The ocean had gone flat, unnaturally so. No wind, no gulls, no chop, not even a hint of swell. It was like the water had forgotten how to move. He scanned the horizon. Nothing but a horizonless blur, water meeting sky in one continuous smudge of blue. Jonah cut the engine, let the boat drift, and leaned over the rail. Even the sound was off. No slap of waves, just a dull, muffled ambience, like listening to the sea through a pillow. He checked the barometer. 29.82. 29.71. 29.55. Dropping fast. Too fast. A cold edge slid down his spine, and then, like a switch had been thrown, the fog arrived. Not mist, not haze. Fog. It poured, in low, like it had weight. Thick bands of white surged across the water and engulfed the vessel in under a minute. Jonah couldn't even see the bow. It wasn't drifting, it was rolling, folding over itself like ocean breath. He grabbed the console, flicked the nav lights on, hit the radio. Nothing, just static. He tried the satellite beacon. No response. He cycled the throttle. The engine coughed, then stopped. Dead, Jonah swore. Popped the engine hatch. Everything looked fine. No overheating, no fuel issues, battery full. But the ignition wouldn't even click. Then came the smell. At first, he thought it was just seaweed. But no, this was ozone, sharp and metallic, like burnt copper and something almost electrical. The fog thickened, pulsing with a kind of slow, internal movement. He couldn't shake the feeling that it wasn't natural. It wasn't just surrounding him, it was pressing in, like a body. Jonah returned to the wheelhouse. The compass spun in slow, erratic circles. The GPS read, NWB Lank, no coordinates, no time. That's when he felt the first tremor, not in the boat, but in his chest. A low, vibratory hum, subsonic, like the groan of shifting ice, or the warning rumble before a landslide. He leaned forward and placed his hand against the wheelhouse wall. It was vibrating, no, pulsing. He stepped outside and nearly slipped. The deck was wet, but not from sea spray. It hadn't rained. No waves, no splash. It was as if the fog itself had wept on the deck. A fine, slick film, like sweat. Jonah's breath caught as he saw it. Just beyond the railing, In the water, a ripple, something massive, just beneath the surface. He leaned closer, then came the knock, a slow, hollow thump from beneath the hull. Once, then again, then a pause. Thump, 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 rhythmic, intentional. He dropped to his knees and placed his palm flat on the deck. The wood felt warm. He whispered aloud, to no one, "What the hell?" The fog shifted again, not with the wind, but as if something was moving through it, and just as quickly as it had arrived, the humming stopped. Silence. Jonah stood. The hairs on his arms were upright. His skin felt charged, like a storm had passed through him, not around him. Then he saw it. Just off the port side, a shape, round, pale, motionless, a human eye, the size of a dinner plate, watching no eyelid. Just a slow dilation. He blinked. It was gone, and the water was boiling. The boat was adrift, not just in water, but in something between. The fog grew thicker, swallowing the sea in slow, deliberate folds. Jonah Mallory, veteran of 1,000 storms, suddenly felt like a child lost in a forest. He thought he knew. He grabbed the satellite radio again, still static. The emergency beacon dead. He checked the fuse panel. Everything appeared intact. Batteries were green, yet nothing worked. Even his backup systems, usually bulletproof, were inert, like the boat had been disconnected from reality. A cold drop of sweat ran down his back. He paced the deck, muttering, under his breath. Then he heard it. Not a creak. Not hull, settling. A knock, slow, hollow, dull, from beneath. He froze, waited. Another knock. Then again, a rhythm now, deliberate, like calling. Jonah dropped to his knees and pressed his palm to the deck. Nothing then. As if in defiance, the deck pulsed once, like a heartbeat in wood. He rose, grabbed his waterproof flashlight from the rail locker, and rushed to the port side. The beam cut through the thick fog like a knife through milk. He leaned over the edge that first. Nothing then. Something caught the light. Not a reflection, a surface, curved, smooth, metal. No, not quite. Then it shifted. An eye, round, black, expressionless, larger than a basketball. Not blinking, just watching. Jonah recoiled. His breath hitched. The flashlight slipped from his hand and skidded across the deck. When he looked back, it was gone. He scrambled to his feet, just as the boat lurched slightly to one side, not from a wave, but pressure. As if something immense had just brushed against the hull. Then came the sound, a hum, low, subterranean. It didn't come through the air, it came through him, like the frequency was meant for bone, not ears. Every filling in his teeth ached. His knees buckled. He grabbed the rail to keep from collapsing. It grew louder, deepening, not random, a message, a signal. Jonah pushed himself upright and staggered toward the wheelhouse. He reached the console, hoping something, anything, had returned. But the screens were scrambled. The radar showed fractals, not shapes, patterns, rotating geometries that pulsed in sync with the hum. He checked the analog compass. It spun in slow, aimless circles, as did the backup, and his watch. He stared at it. The digital screen blinked once, then settled. A PRO 31983. 902. He blinked. 1983. That wasn't possible. Jonah yanked open the drawer beneath the nav station. Inside was a laminated log, the same kind he'd kept for decades. Just in case. He scribbled the date, the symptoms, the fog trying to anchor himself. Then, beneath the date, the pencil moved. Not his hand, it moved on its own, etching slow, angular letters in shaky, unfamiliar lines. He remembers. He dropped the pencil. The humming stopped. Silence. The fog outside wasn't white anymore. It had turned a pale green, tinged with flickering light, like jellyfish beneath the surface of a deep lagoon. Jonah stood still. Then, a shadow, something massive, slid past the starboard window. No features, just length, longer than the boat, longer than anything he had seen. The hull creaked, the water churned, but no wind, no splash. He heard a faint, almost imperceptible whisper, not with his ears in his mind, words he didn't recognize, but understood. "The gate is open." He reached for the cabin light switch. It flickered once, then went out. Darkness, except for the faint glow of the phosphorescent fog. Jonah turned slowly, heart pounding. The silhouette of a man stood on the deck, just outside the wheelhouse, dripping wet, not breathing, watching Jonah, stepped back. But when he opened the door, no one was there, only wet footprints, leading from the port rail to the center of the deck, and then, over the edge. Like something had climbed aboard, and then slipped back under. Jonah knelt and touched the footprints. They weren't water, salt crystallized, dry. He looked up. The fog was thinning, not clearing, but lifting, and beneath it, the sky wasn't the same. The stars were wrong. Too many, too close. Jonah Mallory stood on the deck of the Marlin's wake, surrounded by fog, time distortion, and the memory of an eye that should not exist. And he realized something horrifying. He was no longer lost at sea. He was somewhere else entirely. At 8:17 p.m., the fog began to thin just slightly. Not enough to see the horizon, but enough for movement to become visible again. Not in the water, on the deck, wet footprints. They weren't his. He hadn't moved from the wheelhouse in over an hour. They started at the stern, near the ladder, as if something had climbed aboard, and continued up the walkway toward the cabin to him. Jonah froze, breath held tight in his throat. The prince stopped right behind him. He turned. Nothing, no person, no figure, just the soft creak of the boat's sway, and a dense silence that felt deeper than any he'd known. The kind of silence that pressed against the inside of your skull. But the air was off, thick with salt, yes, but something else. Now, a metallic temps, sharp and sour, old copper, like blood and brine. Then came the hum again, louder now, stronger, no longer distant. It felt directed, like it had found him. Jonah stumbled backward, down the small step onto the open deck, flashlight in hand, breath fogging in the unnaturally cold air. The hum vibrated through the floorboards. He dropped to one knee, pressed his hand flat to the soaked wood. It pulsed, and beneath the hull, the sea had changed. It was glowing. A faint, otherworldly green light shimmered beneath the surface, soft, pulsing, rhythmic, as if something below was alive and breathing. Jonah leaned over the railing, heart racing through the water. He could make out shapes, not fish, not coral, stone, rows of it, pillars, steps, arches, not broken, not ruins, intact, like a city sunken beneath centuries of salt and silence, waiting in the trench where no sonar dared look. The geometry was impossible, nothing perfectly square, nothing fully circular. It shifted as you stared. Jonah recoiled. His hands trembled. The glow intensified, and then the fog parted in a slow swirl, revealing a shadow that had no right to exist. Massive, circling, not a whale, no dorsal fin, no tail or fluke, no skeleton he'd ever seen on any marine chart. It moved with a fluid intelligence, too smooth, too aware, for a heartbeat. Jonah swore he saw eyes, not one, many, blinking in no pattern, watching the boat, not as prey, but as something familiar. The shape dipped just below view, and the boat tipped, slightly, like caught in a slow, impossible current. Jonah dropped the flashlight. It flickered once, then went dark. The compass on the helm spun violently. Every gauge failed, even the stars above. They weren't stars anymore. They were wrong, not constellations, not pinpoints. They were moving, rearranging, swirling like a spiral, like they were watching back. Jonah backed into the wheelhouse and grabbed his old Polaroid camera from the locker. He aimed it at the water and snapped the photo instinctively. maybe madness, maybe proof. The camera clicked. Printed the film. He waited, but the image didn't show the boat. It didn't show the sea. It showed stairs, massive, underwater stairs descending into green-lit blackness, and something at the bottom, a shape, made of angles and limbs that didn't line up, and a figure at the top, step, human-shaped, looking up, wearing his coat. Jonah stared, unblinking. He dropped the photo. The humming stopped, the fog snapped shut, and suddenly, he was alone again, or so, he hoped. Jonah set up the old handheld camcorder on the wheelhouse's console, a habit from his early fishing days, recording catches, weather, rare storms. He hadn't used it in years, but now it felt like the only witness that might outlive him. He clicked record. Strangely, the battery, which should have been long dead, read 100%. Jonah leaned into the lens, his voice cracked and low. Latitude unknown. Depth reads 0. Sky's gone, fog's thick, water's not right. There's pressure, but no waves. It's like I'm inside something. A dome. The sea is holding me. His hands shook. He set the camcorder down, facing the wheelhouse window, to film the deck behind him. He wiped sweat from his brow and sat back. Just a breath. Just one breath to keep sane. Then, something caught his eye. The reflection in the window. He saw himself, but the reflection wasn't moving. Jonah blinked, shifted his head slightly. The reflection didn't follow. It smiled, not a grin, not relief. A slow, knowing smirk. He spun around fast. Nothing. No one behind him. He rushed back to the window. His reflection was gone. Just his own terrified face staring back now, as it should. He looked to the camera, still rolling. He reached to stop it, and that's when it came. A sudden, sharp shriek, like metal being ripped underwater, echoing from the depths below. The entire hull vibrated violently. The floor beneath his boots buckled, once. Then again, like something massive was scraping the underbelly of the boat. Jonah dropped to the floor, clutching his ears. The pitch was unbearable, high, piercing. Wrong, his nose bled. Then one ear. He screamed, but no sound came out. The boat wasn't sinking, it was spinning, a slow, unnatural rotation, as if caught in a whirlpool with no waves. The water remained dead flat. The fog stayed still, but everything turned. The deck, the cabin, the masts. Reality swirled, but the ocean held its glass-like calm. Jonah crawled to the edge, dragging himself over the slippery deck. He peered down. The green glow below was back, brighter now, and in it, shapes. Rising. At first, he thought they were bubbles, columns of disturbed water, but they weren't rising naturally. They were forming, assembling like arms, reaching upward, long, jointless limbs. No hands, no skin, just outline and light. Jonah staggered. Back. He screamed again. Still no sound from his throat. Not fear, no sound at all. The world had gone mute, except for the shriek, now behind his eardrums, gnawing at his brain. He looked at the camera. It was still rolling, still at 100%. The screen showed something behind him. Not just a shadow, a figure, tall, skeletal, mirrored in reverse, standing where the reflection had been, and it was smiling. He awoke to warmth. Sunlight painted golden streaks across the deck. The sting of salt was back in the air, and above the unmistakable sound of gulls. Jonah sat up slowly, expecting the nightmare to still have teeth, but the sky was blue. The sea shimmered. The fog was gone, so was the hum. He staggered to his feet, head pounding, dried blood flaking from his temple. Everything felt real again. The boat was intact. No damage, no splintered railings, no cracked instruments. He checked the engine, running, fuel tank, full GPS, working perfectly. They were 3 miles from Port Dord, 3, not 70, as if someone or something had gently set him back, just close enough to crawl home, but not without a mark. Jonah stepped into the wheelhouse. That's when he saw it. The radio dot warped, melted in place. Its plastic blistered inward, almost vacuum-sealed, like it had been flash-fried from within. The knobs had fused. The casing was scorched black dot. It hadn't been smashed. It had been cooked. Jonah didn't touch it. He didn't speak. He just stood there for a long time, listening to the faint whine of gulls and the water lapping gently against the hull. Then he turned off the engine, drifted the rest of the way in, and made his way to shore. No one met him. No authorities. No friends. Not even the dockmaster. Just the quiet of a summer day. Jonah stepped onto the pier like a ghost. He didn't look back at his trawler. He didn't unload. He didn't tie the ropes. He just walked. That night, in his small home along the harbor, he sat at the table with the camcorder. He hadn't meant to bring it, but there it was, sitting on the galley counter, where he dropped it in the fog. Still humming, still warm. Jonah didn't eat. He didn't drink. He stared at it until midnight. Then, finally, he pressed play. The screen flickered, static, then color, himself. Frantic whispering log entries. Recording the fog, the humming, the blood, the deck. He watched it all until the final frame, and then he saw something he didn't remember filming. It was the last 3 seconds, faint, almost blurred, but unmistakable. The camera, now lying sideways on the deck, had been filming outward, off the stern of the boat. After he collapsed, the sea was in frame, but it wasn't calm. It was boiling. Just beneath the surface, the water rippled unnaturally, and in the center, a seam opened. Not a wave, not a natural current. A door, rectangular, metallic, wet, edged with black barnacles and shimmering glyphs that pulsed green. It slowly swung open into nothingness, and behind it, a silhouette, tall, motionless, watching, not swimming, standing, as if the ocean floor had risen to meet it, as if it had been waiting. Then the screen, glitched, static again. The tape ended. Jonah sat in the dark for a long time. He didn't rewind. He didn't save it. He took the camcorder to the backyard, doused it in lighter fluid, and burned it until the plastic dripped and the lens popped. But some part of him knew the tape itself had already been changed, and something had let him return only because it wanted to. He never told anyone, no police, no Coast Guard, not even the other fishermen at the dock. They noticed, of course, that he stopped going out, that he never spoke of Greywater Shoals again, that his eyes didn't quite meet theirs. One of them once joked, "You see the sea gods out there, Jonah?" Jonah only stared. "Something older," he said quietly. "Older than gods."